Welcome to the PghGal Principal Podcast, where women school leaders and teachers come to share their school and classroom stories about teaching, learning, and leading. If you are a woman leader or teacher, I would love to have you on the show and share your story. Please connect with me on Twitter at eclaire_ahs or following my blog at pittsburghgalprincipal.wordpress.com. This is episode 8 of the PghGal Principal. Hello, everybody. Today I'm talking to Michele Hill. Michele is from Malacca Hill in South Jersey. She's a world language teacher there at Delsea Regional High School. She's going to talk to us about her experiences, both as being a special ed teacher, as a world language teacher, and teaching a class at her school that's called SWAG. And so she'll share all that information with us. So Michele, thank you so much for talking to me today. Why don't we just start by you sharing a little bit about your background, how you got started in education, all the way up until where you are today.
Okay, glad to be here. I'm from Philadelphia originally, you might tell by my accent. I grew up, my mother raised us pretty much by herself as a single parent of 4 children. And I had a brother who, my younger brother, who had dyslexia. And so when I went to college, I wasn't what I was going to do. I thought maybe I'd like to be a lawyer. And then I played around with that idea and realized that I had a penchant for working with children that had difficulties. And so I decided I'd become a special ed teacher. And that was my first certification. I graduated from LaSalle University as a special ed teacher. I've always loved culture and language. And so I went back to get a second certification to be a bilingual educator, bicultural bilingual master's degree, and that certified me to teach Spanish. So I combined the love that I had for both and was able to get a job teaching Spanish to special ed population as well as regular ed population.
Okay,
So that was my second certification, and I love what I do. I teach students from the honors level Spanish class all the way down to special ed, resource, self-contained classes, depending on their their handicap. And then I went back to get a master's degree in school leadership. And so currently I'm still an educator, but I do a lot of things that are outside the box of the traditional leader, do workshops and other things that are more towards the school leadership end of the spectrum.
Okay, very cool. Now, on the off-air part of the show, you were sharing with me about a class that you teach that sounds pretty unique to the high school that you're at, and it's called SWAG. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yep. SWAG was not my idea. It was a brainstorm of a guidance counselor and our building principal who realized that they had a lot of boys during the silent sustained reading portion of the day in the morning that just didn't like to read and would look for any excuse to get out. They would come into the guidance counselor's office and want to talk about anything other than reading. And so he realized at that time that they really had a need, those boys had a need to connect with somebody. And so they thought, how great would it be if we could offer them an opportunity in the beginning part of their day where they had time to speak to maybe a mentor type person, get their studies together, make sure they were prepared for their classes, check in on their grades, etc. And so they came up with the brainstorm of SWAG, and I was invited to be part of that program to think, outside the box, what could we do there? And so we developed a curriculum where it's more of a skills class, but it's also a complete support class, not just academic, it's social, emotional. And so we deal with everything with those boys. They really become like our children. And so I've been the lead teacher for 4 years. This will be my 5th year. I limit it to 12 or 13 boys. I have a couple paraprofessionals, they're male, in the room. And we make sure that they're prepared for their classes. We're checking on their grades all the time. We assist them in any of their academic needs. but also making sure they're coming to school on time, making sure that they're not getting into trouble with discipline. And what we've seen as a result of it, these are our most at-risk boys that maybe entered my swag class failing 5 or 6 out of their 8 classes. What we've seen is that they're by, a year or 2 years later, there's a complete turnaround where they're passing all of their classes, but maybe one or all of their classes. And so we've saved them from dropping out or going to the alternative school program, and also built up an incredible amount of pride in who they are. And it's just an incredible feeling for me as an educator to watch them develop into the person that they should become, instead of, falling victim to what could have happened.
Oh my
So
gosh,
it's really
yeah.
a cool program.
Absolutely. Now, does SWAG, is that an acronym for something? Or?
It is.
Okay.
It's students working A to G. So, working with attitude, behavior, character, discipline, and down to G. So that it's just an acronym for that. And it was just kind of, at the time, 5 years ago, swag was kind of a cool word. So it worked.
Is it not a cool word anymore? Is swag on its way
Uh,
out?
it is, but not quite as cool as it was 5 years ago.
Okay, now can students enter into that swag class as a freshman and continue all 4 years, or?
Yeah, actually, our students are identified by the IRS team, which is, as teachers find students that are really struggling, they refer them, and they meet as a group, the principal, guidance counselors, anybody who's involved in that aspect of the boys' academic career, and then they refer them, and if there's room, we take them into the SWAG program. The funny thing was, we initially thought that they would stay a year and then they'd be ready to go. But the boys don't want to leave. So every year they want to come back. They're like, I didn't get on my schedule. How do I get back in? And so, I've had some kids who have been with me for 3 years before they graduate, and others not so much. Others, after a year, get on their feet and they fly, and they're great, and they just check in with me now and again, and I kind of keep an eye on their grades and check in with their parents to see how they're doing. So it just depends on the needs of the student.
Yeah, I love that, flexibility to go in and then when you're ready to, kind of do it on your own. But I bet the boys love the individual attention that they're getting and the relationship that they're building with you, as well as probably many of the paraprofessionals who work in there.
Yeah, it's an incredible program, but it becomes like a tight-knit family. We depend on one another, and it's all hands on deck. But the kids, I walk away every year just feeling so blessed to have forged relationships with students like that. It's indescribable, really.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Now, tell us a little bit more about your high school. Is it a big high school, small high school? What's the new kind of thing going on at your school?
Well, we have about 1,200 kids.
Okay, wow.
I'm not going to say it's exactly, but 11 something. It's a high school, 9 to 12. It is a regional high school, so we pull from a couple of areas. We have, what's new going on is we're entering something called Delcy 1 next year, where we have a 1 lunch period. Okay. We're super excited. There's a little trepidation about what it's going to be like to have almost 1,200 kids eating lunch at exactly the same time. But during that time period, it's just about an hour where the students, half the time, will eat their lunch, and the other half they can engage in different activities. So it could be study skills, it could be just letting off steam, doing things, down at the gym. They could go teachers for tutorials. There's just an incredible amount of things and flexibility that they can do that opens up the possibility that wouldn't always be available during a structured day that they had a specific lunch. So it's new, it's exciting, and we're gearing up.
Oh yeah. Now I've heard of a couple schools across the nation who have kind of went to a 1 lunch period, and so we've talked about it here at my school, sort of internally with the other principals. I'm interested to know how, or I don't know if you can answer this, but how the cafeteria is going to manage, 1,200 kids, or how that works.
Yeah, I have to give full credit to our principal, Mr. Baradelli. He actually had been at a one lunch school about 5 years ago and looked at this and thought he'd like to bring it back to our school. And it's taken him this long to really gather all the data and to get everybody on board. I've been part of a group that went out and visited some of the schools that have had the one lunch, and I know that the cafeteria is going to work where there we have a wonderful cafeteria staff, as well as the key person, Pat Rattel. She'll actually have different kind of stations throughout the school. And so they'll have the cafeteria in the library. They'll have some kind of a coffee bar with some snacks. Down by the gym, there'll be another eating area. And so there'll be designated kiosks where the students will be served. And they're toying with the idea of letting seniors go out for lunch during that time period.
Very cool, very cool. I would imagine some kids will want to eat right away, and then other kids might want to do their activity first, and then go eat. Do they have that flexibility too built in?
Yeah, during the one lunch, they can really do what they want during that time period. They can almost like eat on the fly. They could take their lunch to a tutorial session. So it's really, that's their 1 hour time to get a lot of things done.
Okay, cool.
Just eating in sometime during that time.
Yeah, now I know New Jersey also has teacher unions, just like in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So I would be also interested in knowing how that's working in terms of making sure that the teachers get their whatever it is that the contract requires for them to get in terms of lunch.
Well, yeah, we belong to NJEA at our local, and so it was really, really important for our staff to make sure that they got their preps as well as their lunchtime according to our contract. And I know our administrators really worked hand in hand with the local president to make sure that everything was upheld with in regards to our contract. As it sits right now, we're doing a little bit of a different schedule where we're not, some schools that do the one lunch do something called a wheel where they adjust and drop 2 classes a day so that it's more collegial. And that was one of the things that they thought that they would like to do, but it really posed a problem with teacher prep time. Mm-hmm. So they came up with an alternative schedule that where every class will meet, but they'll rotate the classes. So one day you will have, classes 1 through 8. The next day you'll have classes, you'll start at 2 so that you see your students at different times of the day, but you'll meet all of your classes every day. And that ensured that the prep time as well as lunchtime is sacred, and we didn't have any problems with the union with that. So that was a bonus.
Okay, cool. So at Delsea Regional, do you have kind of a traditional 8-period day, or?
Yes. Yeah, we have an 8-period day, and we had designated lunches. So now this will be a little different. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, cool. I can't wait to sort of follow along. Hopefully you'll be tweeting about it and sharing how it goes. So you just finished or recently finished your administration certificate, and
I've had it for quite a while.
Okay.
About 5 years, 6 years. Something that I was encouraged to do. Still on that fence about whether to jump right in. You talk to some administrators and they say stay where you are. So I guess the story is untold at this point, but I use a lot of what I know in working, with other administrators and teachers through workshops, and just thinking a little differently than the teacher in the classroom. With having this background, I can see a bigger picture.
Yeah, it definitely requires you to think beyond your classroom and think of kind of the school, which is a shift. But, for me, I love being a principal. I think it's the best job that I've ever had. But I think it has a lot to do with the district that you go to. So if you ever do decide to, like you said, take the plunge, you have to make sure that when you're out there interviewing, that you're also interviewing them too, because you want to make sure you get put in a situation that creates goodness for you. So I think that's really important. So you said that you've done a little bit of professional development with teachers. Can you share a little bit about what you've done, what you want to do?
Yeah, it just kind of happened by accident because over the years I've done a little bit of professional development for my own district. I started with a workshop entitled Working with the Disadvantaged Youth because it seems to be a specialty of mine.
Okay.
I connect really well with students who come from difficult backgrounds and have a finesse way of dealing with those students and have had a lot of success. Certainly not the only teacher to do so in our building, but with the special ed background, I think I had, this kind of connection. So I did that for our district many years ago, and then I was asked to do it for a neighboring district in Cherry Hill, and it went over really, really well. And since then, every year I've grown in the amount of professional development workshops that I give in the summer for different neighboring schools or the educational resource center that's local to us. And so I've done topics of working with disadvantaged youth, creating a culturally responsive school, we flipping the faculty meeting I do with my principal, climate control, and this year we're going to do a different one called Presentations Plus, which is kind of an extension of flipping your faculty meeting, but how to build those how to build your presentations so that you are really engaging your target audience. So I've found a lot of success, but also a lot of pleasure in creating professional development that really engages staff, that really engages people on how to keep with their pedagogy and continue learning. And so I really, really love that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're doing most of this professional development at the local level,
Yeah.
or okay. Have you ever thought about kind of broadening your reach and doing something, I don't know, virtually that people could jump into, kind of on the national or global level? It sounds like you have a lot to offer, particularly with creating culturally responsive schools, working with disadvantaged youth. Like this is not something that I see that's heavily out there. That could be a need, not just locally but nationally.
Yeah, I actually through Twitter. Twitter is just an amazing thing. You know that as well as I do. That I've been able to find some different venues and do some different workshops or ed camps that are more statewide than they are local. And so I'm branching out a little bit here and there. I think I was just, we're dipping our toes in the water a little bit to see what kind of feedback and how it goes. And I'm slated to do one. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and I think it's just Pennsylvania, New Jersey, but it's funded by the Gates.
Yes, yes.
So I'm going to be doing that in September. That's a weekend. And I'm hoping that that'll be a broad reach at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Do you use Voxer at all?
I don't, and
Okay.
I probably need to research a little bit more about that.
It took me a while, and then I connected with Jennifer Hogan. She's an assistant principal out in Alabama, and she got me in this Women in Educational Leadership Voxer group.
Okay.
And what we're planning to do is a virtual Women in Ed Leadership conference. And I think, you would have a lot to offer in terms of creating some sort of virtual presentation for the participants in that group. But, beyond that kind of conference, I think, we would love to have you in the Voxer group. It's just women who just talk about, what they're doing at their schools and, throw ideas back and forth. And I'm completely sold on Voxer. Now, it did take me at least a year to jump in, but now I've like really jumped in. So I would encourage you to kind of play around with that tool.
Well, thank you. It's like anything else. I don't get in until I have to. And when I do, I get really addicted to it. I got into Twitter because somebody following Justin Tart, and they're like, "Don't you follow him on Twitter?" I'm like, "I don't have Twitter." So it's because of that person that I'm now a Twitter junkie. But yeah, I'll check out Voxer, and I'd love to join.
Okay. I'm sure you've seen all over Twitter, Kids Deserve It and hashtag Kids Deserve It and the book going. Have you read the book?
No.
Okay, that's another thing that I'm doing on Voxer, which has kind of, got me thinking that I can use this with my staff because it's a book study, and
Hmm.
all of these people who are reading Kids Deserve It are in this Voxer group, and you can just share ideas and share what you think about the book using the app. Anyways, just another plug for Voxer. I don't work for Voxer or anything. I just I just really like it.
Well, I definitely will check it out. I have probably about 4 weeks left of summer break, and it'll go by quickly, but it'll definitely be something that I look into now that I have to.
Yeah,
But
it does go by fast the summer. It goes by so fast. So, 4 weeks left. Do you have anything that you're hoping to accomplish in the next 4 weeks to get ready for school, or are you just relaxing and recharging?
It's funny. I imagine most educators, at least I know a lot of educators that walk out and just kind of turn it off and say, I can't really think about that till about 2 weeks before. I'm hoping that they're staying relevant, they're reading and doing other things, but they really don't want to think about the classroom. For me, my husband, my kids will tell you it's incessant. That's all I do think about is how we could do things differently and how we can shake it up a little. And so I am every day reading and thinking about different ideas on how we can change the landscape or look at things or engage our staff or really reignite the passion of our staff because I'm sure you know and you feel it that there has been just a slaughter of on teachers in the past decade where when you introduce yourself and people say, what do you do? And you say, I'm a teacher. They go, oh.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. When it should
Yeah,
be like, oh, I'm so jealous. That's an amazing job.
right. And it really is kind of a cornerstone of what I'd like to see happen is just reignite that respect and passion for what we do as educators because it's just really, really been so upsetting as a passionate educator to see what the stigma attached to teaching has become. And so I really like to see some of our leaders in the country as well as our, just the general public acknowledge what it is that we do for our children. And so I'm always thinking along those lines, like how do we connect with our staff again so that how do we connect them together? How do we, form, a really cohesive team so that we're all on the same page and that we really come into school and just think about what's best for our kids and just have some fun. I was thinking about this the other day. What's missing is there's no fun. It's
Mhm.
it's all mandates and it's all, somebody telling you have to do this and you have to do that and to just fun. We need to build a little fun back in so that people enjoy and say, I love what I do. And without that, we are really, I guess, testing the fortitude of our people because it's just, they walk in and there's mandates and there's things to do and they close their door and they teach and then they go home. And so I'd really like to see a connection with staff and administration so that we're actually enjoying what we do so much.
Absolutely. And I always say learning should be joyful. And I'm usually talking about, on the kids' end, but I think you're right. It should be on the teacher's end too. The
Mhm.
learning that happens professionally should be a joyful, fun experience. You also mentioned reading and staying relevant. What's kind of the last thing that you read that kind of ignited your passion or you felt really strongly was a good piece?
I've ordered some books that I'm planning on reading this summer that a lot of the titles that we talk about on Twitter, but I read probably, and this is no exaggeration and it's certainly not being pompous, but I read probably 15 journal articles a day. So I'm just constantly reading anything through Edweek, Edutopia. I love, of course, Todd Whitaker. Everybody loves Todd Whitaker. Reading, just constantly reading articles and, the mindset, the growth mindset, things like that is really, really important to stay relevant. And what's great about reading at that level or at that time period is that it's short. So if you don't have a lot of time and you're just a teacher who wants to get in some other things and you have young kids and you're doing other things, to take 5 minutes to read an article is not very, it's not a big time commitment. And then of course I read for pleasure, just for fun, but I read almost anything and everything related to education that I can get my hands on, because just to explore different viewpoints, stay relevant, understand when they're talking about, the new nomenclature associated with education, that you really want to make sure that you're on the cutting edge.
Absolutely. What about bloggers? Are there any bloggers that...
I do. I follow Jennifer Hogan as well. Star Saxton is just incredible. She's Brad Curry, just probably the same ones that you do, but just incredible. And Nathan Lang, just so many of them I follow that it's crazy. As I said, it consumes my day.
Absolutely. But that's another wonderful thing just about being on Twitter. I mean, like you were talking about just, the importance of being positive about what we do in schools. And, I can have a super, super tough day. I think I've talked about this on every podcast episode I've had, but I can have a super tough day and just 2 minutes on Twitter and reading something from some committed, passionate educator from across the nation. And I just feel better. It just lifts my spirits to know that there are other people out there who are just as passionate, and sharing like just really positive things that are happening. And all of those names that you mentioned, those are like my edu heroes. That's what I call them.
I agree. They really do a wonderful job of making sure that we all stay positive, which is incredible because, as you said, we all have those days, maybe weeks even, where we're not really sure about what it is that we're doing or why we're doing it. But then you read about it and you think to yourself, we're all in this together, and this is a movement. And so you really, it kind of grounds you again, which is great.
Absolutely. So you do a lot of reading. Do you do any writing? Have you written anything or plans on writing anything?
Yeah, actually, I did for a little bit. I started a blog, and I actually have the next post, because I haven't done it since March, but now that things have settled down and I have a little bit of time, I do have a post that I'll clean up probably in the next couple of days. It's called The Spirited Educator at Blogspot, and so I talked a little bit about educators feeling under fire, and what it's like, and then also some different. I did one on my learning centers. I do learning centers, but putting our students as the lead on the Ed Camp, where they are the expert, and what that was like. But the next one I'm kind of excited about, because, as I said, I just did a workshop on being culturally relevant, responsive schools, and I used an introduction of the 5 languages of love.
Okay.
As the icebreaker, but then I tied it in that, just like we all have a different language of love and we have diverse needs, so do our students. So I was able to tie it in that way, and it gave me this brainstorm that there are really 5 languages of learning. And those languages of learning are really very much like our languages of love, gift giving and physical touch and spending quality time. If you can manipulate them a little bit. Of course, we're not physically touching our students. Manipulate them a little bit to the classroom. You can see that they really hold true as well, that our students learn in an environment where there are those languages of love or languages of learning. So that's my next post, and I'll probably get it in about 3 or 4 days after I clean it up and make sure it's grammatically correct, etc.
Okay. Now that sounds like something that could turn into a book, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that the more you read and the more that you do these things, and I'm always thinking in a workshop, how am I going to engage these people? So as a teacher, you know that you need the hook, and I'm thinking, what's the hook going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to do that. But yeah, I really believe that at the base of all learning is really the relationship, and I um, cannot say that enough for any educator, that if you haven't built a relationship or a foundation where students feel that there is any kind of a connection, you're losing so many of your students because of that. You can know your content area, but you will never fully engage them if you don't develop a relationship. So it's really key.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships first. Now, this sounds kind of crazy to some people, but I think you would agree that many of the professional relationships that I'm developing now are through Twitter. So they're more like virtual relationships, but they're so important to me. Have you done anything, or maybe you don't have to? I don't know your staff at the school that you're at. To get people on Twitter who might be a little bit hesitant.
We haven't, and it's one of the things that I wanted to do. I had a great idea, but because I'm a teacher and not an administrator, really my great ideas kind of begin and end with me unless I can get somebody to grab on.
Okay.
So that's always a little bit frustrating. I mean, I talk to my colleagues about Twitter and just explain how incredible it is. But one of the things that I thought would be awesome is Tech Tuesdays, where on Tuesdays for 20 minutes after school, that you can have little, I guess, little kiosks set up for different social media, and that our staff can come in and explore what it is like. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm hoping that maybe somebody will catch on to that this year, and we can actually implement it. Last year was really filled with a lot of initiative towards this one lunch.
Okay.
So, but with that one lunch, there's the possibility that we could do it during the one lunch and not do it during, after school, which would take up additional time. So we may be able to get a Twitter educator club going during that time period, which would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know if many other educators at your high school use Twitter for professional development or just sharing what's going on?
Yeah, not too many. A
Mm,
lot of them have an account, but they don't actively use,
mm-hmm.
or they just follow, sports and things like
Right.
that. Only a handful really are people who are really devoted to finding professional development.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you're excited about for this coming school year? I know that, the one lunch thing, that'll be really exciting and different to see how that spans out, but anything else for the upcoming school year that you're super excited about?
Well, every year is always exciting because you never know what kids you're going to get, and what different things are going to happen. I'm very, very blessed. I always say that I get to do what I love for a living, and not everybody gets to do that. So I think that every year for me is exciting. I'm hoping that I really have an opportunity to explore different things that I've learned about on Twitter, and probably motivate some of our staff to participate through those things, and then just continue developing myself, through workshops and alliances with other educators to do some really innovative, creative things.
Okay, this is my last question. So I have quite a few new teachers coming on board this school year. We're a pretty small school, so I say a lot, and it's like four, but that's like a lot for our staff.
Okay.
What advice would you give for a new teacher coming in, for brand new, totally green?
Okay. So I have a couple of things that I always tell young staff, because, I've been a mentor over the years, or just even a buddy for new staff, and also part of our climate control. Number one thing I always tell the teachers: get involved in as many things as you can, because you get to know your colleagues and administrators, but you also get to know your students. The second, probably most powerful thing that I ever tell teachers, brand new teachers, is learn your students' names. And I don't just mean your students in your classrooms, but the one walking by in the hallway. When you know their name, it's so powerful because you have a connection with them. And so then discipline issues really kind of dissolve because there's no anonymity. And find something that you can relate to with them. Find an interest that you can talk about and build that relationship. And don't be afraid. I always tell them, students will do what you permit them to do. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be firm and fair. And don't worry about the fact whether they like you or don't like you, because that's going to come down the road. But make sure that you set your expectations really firmly in the beginning, fair, and develop that relationship. And the learning just takes place. It's amazing how when you have that foundation that everything builds on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Michele. I really appreciate it. How can people connect with you after listening to this podcast? How can they contact you if they have questions about anything that you've shared with us?
My email address is mhill@delseyregional.us, and I'm also on Twitter as Hill M. Rispo. That's my maiden name. So either of those two ways would be fine.
And one more time, what your blog website is?
Oh, spiritededucator.blogspot.com.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michele. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
And I'll check out Voxer.
Okay, yes. That's your homework.
This has been a joy.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in on the PghGal Principal Podcast. I am always excited to connect with women in education, learn how they are balancing work and home, as well as challenging the status quo about what it means to be a successful woman. My podcast is all about elevating the voices of women, so please share these stories with your friends and your colleagues. Find me on Twitter at @eclaire_ahs. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.